I have a view. If you want to come to our country for freedom and opportunity, that's one thing. But if you want to come to conquer, I'm not in for that. And so we're doing a number of things to stop it. One of which is the No Sharia Act, which says what it says: no Sharia in the United States. We're not going to have Muslim religious codes override noise ordinances. We're not going to have Muslim mayors tell non-Muslims they're no longer welcome to live in the cities that they come from. This has happened. We're not going to allow Muslims to pray in the middle of streets to block them. They have to follow the same rules everyone else is. And I do think you raise this concern of how much of this religion is a religion as opposed to a political ideology predicated on conquest. And what we're saying in America is the part that's a religion, all right, you have the freedom of religion, but the part that's a political ideology of conquest built on subjugating women and other things, that's not going to play here. And so I've introduced a lot of bills largely dealing with immigration, which is something I think that we need to largely stop in the United States. I think we have to fix our immigration system. We've been so focused on illegal immigration that we stopped looking at legal immigration, where we've allowed millions of people who hate our country to become Americans. And we've got to deal with that issue as well. So it's a big problem, and it's something that I'm excited about tackling.
Hello, Action for Canada friends. We're so glad you've tuned in to tonight's show. A warm welcome to you. Our guest speaker this evening is Congressman Randy Fine, and the title of tonight's pre-recorded show is Islam Must Be Stopped, No Sharia Act. It's November 19th, 2025, and this is the Empower Hour. For those of you who are new to the Empower Hour, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Tanya Gaw, the founder and leader of Action for Canada. Tanya is committed to educating Canadians on important topics, including tonight's pre-recorded interview on political Islam. But first, before we head over to that interview, Tanya would like to share a few important updates with us. Hello, Tanya.
Hello, Heather. Thank you. And you're right. This is going to be a very important show tonight. But I do have a comment to make. Before we roll Monday's pre-record, this was done on Monday with Florida Congressman Randy Fine. I want to note major breaking news that was relevant to our discussion. So yesterday, Texas Governor Greg Abbott formally designated the Muslim Brotherhood and its U.S.-based front group CARE as foreign terrorist organizations. This is a historic and courageous step, the first time a U.S. state has taken this action, and it aligns perfectly with the national level efforts you're about to hear Congressman Fine and I discuss in our interview. Governor Abbott appears to be sending a clear message that the threat is real and that states can't wait for Washington to act. We'll be watching closely to see what enforcement powers Texas is actually able to assert under this new designation. We pray this is the beginning of the end of Islam in the West and that it will indeed set a precedent. After the interview, I also decided to add 2 short clips during the show that provide undeniable evidence of the points the Congressman and I raise, clips that underscore why bold action like this is urgently needed. So now to the show. Thank you. Hello, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is going to be a really important show. Today we are going to address the rise of Islam in the West and what needs to be done to put a stop to it. To make it abundantly clear, Islam is not a religion. It is a violent political military system, and its intent is world domination. In countries throughout the Middle East, they have accomplished this through violence, and throughout Europe and the West, they are achieving victories through victimization and subversion via the ballot. They are weaponizing our Constitution, human rights tribunals, and courts, and making a mockery of our heritage and culture, which is founded on Judeo-Christian biblical principles. In Canada, freedom of religion was included in our Constitution, our charter, to keep the government out of the business of the churches. Today, Section 2A is being misinterpreted and thereby providing immigrants the ability to worship their foreign false gods and erect their idols on our soil. It truly is long overdue to put a stop to this, call it out, and reverse course. God provided us very clear instructions when He gave us the 10 Commandments. The top two say, "You shall have no other gods before me, or make for yourselves idols." As a nation founded on biblical principles, we are duty-bound to uphold the commandments. Therefore, all manifestations of Islam need to be shut down and banned in the West, along with the Sikh, Hindu, and Buddhist temples. People are welcome to come to Canada as long as they are willing to integrate and assimilate into our Christian culture. Otherwise, they need to return to their homeland or a country that embraces their values. Multiculturalism was never meant to succeed. What you are witnessing was the plan all along, to divide and conquer the West through population replacement and the orchestrated spread of ideologies that erode Christianity's moral and civilizational bedrock. Ask yourself, why the 56 Islamic majority countries, China, Pakistan, or North Korea, for examples, are not being pressured or mandated to allow foreigners to infiltrate en masse and demand their beliefs to override those host countries, their core beliefs. Our current leadership are hostile toward Canada, and they are acting on behalf of the interests of foreign globalists and unelected bodies, such as the United Nations and the World Economic Forum. This is tantamount to treason. We are at war, and we need to respond accordingly. We need solutions, and we must take action. Our guest today, Congressman Randy Fine, serving Florida's 6th Congressional District, joins us to discuss actions being taken in the United States to address the threat of Islam. As a fearless defender of American values, Congressman Fine has been on the front lines battling radical ideologies, from Marxist incursions to anti-LGBTQ+ hate bills in Florida. He recently introduced the groundbreaking No Sharia Act, a bipartisan-backed bill designed to make absolutely clear that Sharia law or any foreign religious legal system has no place in American courts, government agencies, or public institutions. As Congressman Fine boldly stated, let me be crystal clear, Sharia law has no place in the United States of America. We cannot and will not allow for foreign legal systems to undermine our Constitution. So with that, welcome Congressman Fine, and thank you for joining us on the Empower Hour to discuss this incredibly important topic.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
You, sir, I'm following you now on X, and I would really encourage everyone that's listening to this to do the same, because they will be very much encouraged. You have taken some very bold stands on some very important issues, and I know that you have put bills forward. I'm just going to let's talk a little bit before we dig into the rise of Islam in America, the United States, and Europe. Let's talk about some of those bills that you've put forward in Florida. Do you want to tell our viewers just about some of the work that you've done there?
Well, sure. I mean, look, I believe one of the greatest threats facing the West is mainstream Islam. And I actually differentiate mainstream Islam from radical Islam because I think we got it wrong. It's often called radical Islam because putting the radical in front of the word tries to minimize it. It implies it's some tiny, small percentage of people, just the radicals. When it turns out mainstream Islam seeks to subjugate us and seeks to conquer us. The radical Muslims are the ones who come to our countries and want to integrate and want to get along. They're the radicals. So moderate Islam has become a huge problem, certainly in Western Europe, I think in Canada, and it's a growing problem in the United States. And so I have a view, if you want to come to our country for freedom and opportunity, that's one thing. But if you want to come to conquer, I'm not in for that. And so we're doing a number of things to stop it. One of which is the No Sharia Act, which says what it says. No Sharia in the United States. We're not going to have Muslim religious codes override noise ordinances. We're not going to have Muslim mayors tell non-Muslims they're no longer welcome to live in the cities that they come from. This has happened. We're not going to allow Muslims to pray in the middle of streets to block them. They have to follow the same rules everyone else is. And I do think you raise this concern of how much of this religion is a religion as opposed to a political ideology predicated on conquest. And what we're saying in America is the part that's a religion, all right, you have the freedom of religion, but the part that's a political ideology of conquest, built on subjugating women and other things, that's not going to play here. And so I've introduced a lot of bills largely dealing with immigration, which is something I think that we need to largely stop in the United States. I think we have to fix our immigration system. We've been so focused on illegal immigration that we stopped looking at legal immigration, where we've it allowed millions of people who hate our country to become Americans. And we've got to deal with that issue as well. So it's a big problem, and it's something that I'm excited about tackling.
Well, and you're doing such a good job of that. And it's very encouraging, not only to Canadians, but I have contacts, throughout Europe, and they're feeling that same glimmer of hope that maybe the United States is going to take this beast on and, finally tear it down, because it's not going to get better unless we completely eradicate it. And that can seem very extreme to our viewers who have been manipulated and indoctrinated into believing that we need to accept and accommodate everybody that's coming in to our own demise. And
Yeah.
I'm just going to read a text that comes from the Muslim Brotherhood, and they made it very, very clear. This was in America's Historical in 2007 and 8 in Dallas, Texas, the Holy Land trials. And there are active, listed in the Holy Land trials are organizations, Islamic organizations that are active in Canada as not-for-profit organizations or charitable organizations that have been proven to be funneling terrorist financing to terrorist groups. But the Muslim Brotherhood, in this case, they found this document, and it said the process of settlement is a civilization jihadist process with all the word means. The Ikhwan, Muslim Brotherhood, must understand that their work in America is a kind of grand jihad in eliminating and destroying the Western civilization from within and sabotaging its miserable house by their hands and the hands of the believers, so that it's eliminated and God's, Allah's religion is made victorious over all other religions. They've made it very clear what their objective is. And then just in my final statement, to give the floor back to you, was you had mentioned, I agree as well. I was so used to saying either political Islam or radical Islam, but I love how you said that. The radicals are the ones here, but they're not so radical. What they are is disobedient Muslims, because they're not following the Quran. The Quran is very clear that taqiyya, to lie to the infidels, to destroy the infidels, and subversion is the goal. And we have no idea if our friendly Muslim neighbor is actually friendly or part of the grand jihad, the silent jihad that is penetrating all institutions and our society at large.
Yeah, look, I think the question you should be asking is sort of why they say these things so clearly. Why don't people believe them? Why don't they hear them? Why don't they act? And I've thought a lot about this. And the reason is ignorance truly is bliss.
Yeah.
It's a lot easier to live in a world where you say, we're all one giant human family. We all share the same values. We can settle our differences around the drum circle, having a friendly chat. That's a lot easier than to realize there is evil in this world and there are people who want to conquer you.
Mm-hmm.
And failure to address the truth can lead to the destruction of your civilization. And there's really no better place to look right now than the UK, or what I call the United Islamic Kingdom. You know, a society that is basically being destroyed from within, from its absolute unwillingness to face that there is evil in this world and not all cultures are equal.
No.
You know, there used to be a time in this world where we said, there were cultures that said eating people was okay. Like that was part of their culture. And society said, you know what? No, not okay. Our culture is better than yours. Eating people bad. There were cultures that said sacrificing children was okay. And they said, no. We said, that's inferior culture. We're not going to put up with that. But somehow we've lost our willingness to speak in absolute truth and to say, you know what, a culture that says women can't go to school, or they have to be covered from head to toe, or you can do honor killings or whatever it is. No, that's not a good culture. And so we've lost that ability. we want to think everyone's just like us. And I think it is that desire to live in ignorance, which is really imperiling much of the West. The difference for me is I see the threat for what it is, and I'm willing to call evil by its name.
Absolutely. I'm completely and 100% aligned with you. Add to that to marry a 6-year-old and consummate a marriage at 9. And we talk about Europe and the UK, it's cultural suicide. And Canada is being fast-tracked, and I believe that this is definitely by design. Let's talk for a moment about this red-green axis. And I've talked to our viewers before and tried to educate them on the fact that the United Nations, we need to literally pull out of the United Nations, completely stop funding this institution, because a third of it is Sharia compliant, and the other 2/3 is pretty much Marxist, communist, socialist, call it what you may. And, it's these two useful idiots using each other for a time. One of them is going to prevail. And we have a good idea who's having the greatest impact worldwide and conquering, and that's definitely Islam. And so, we've got people like in Canada, like Justin Trudeau, who wanted to comply fully with the United Nations and their dictates. And Mark Carney is definitely an operative that is definitely working on the side of the United Nations and WEF, and not in the best interest of Canadians. And so that means that, I don't know if you heard several months ago when he said Muslim values are Canadian values, and he was standing before them and accepting them, and we're being flooded with Muslims right now. And the demographics in Canada across our nation have changed so dramatically, and we do pose a significant threat to the United States as they allow these extremists. And it's not just them, it's the Khalistani Sikhs and the Hindus as well, but it's more the Muslims who have a direction on the United States as well.
I often have a phrase, from the river to the sea, let's make Manhattan UN free. I mean, I think that the UN is a democratic organization run by undemocratic nations. And so you've got all of these Muslim countries or these dictatorships that all get votes. And when you look at things like who sits on the Human Rights Council of the United Nations, the thing is a joke. And if it were up to me, we would leave, because I don't think it's a good use of American tax dollars to fund this entity. And so I think it's bad. You talk about the Red Green Alliance, this alliance between Marxists and mainstream Islam. It is extraordinary that they work together. I think it is because the political philosophy of mainstream Islam is very similar to the political philosophy of Marxism. I don't think the religious part is. And that's why what we've seen in America is when the Red Green Alliance works together, when you see things like, gays for Palestine or whatever it is, when they take over, very quickly, the green part of the Red Green Alliance kicks out the red part. And there are these unbelievable stories you'll read in America of gay rights groups saying, wait, what happened? We helped you take over, and now you're kicking us out and calling us names. And so I think that, I think the left, the Marxist part of the Red Green Alliance is delusional. I think the green part is evil. I think the red part is delusional. I mean, look, communism and socialism don't work. They never have. So to believe in them means you have to live in a suspension of reality and a delusion. The mainstream Islam does work. It works in a way we don't like, but if your goal is conquest and subjugation, I mean, it works in Afghanistan. It doesn't work for things that we would want, but it works to accomplish the ends that they have. So that's why they're effective at pushing their ideology, where the delusional red side, they lose once they take over.
Right. And do you agree that they're masking themselves as a religion in order to infiltrate the West and to take advantage of that cover? And I think that one of the very important things would be for the West, for Europe, the UK, anyone non-Muslim, any non-Muslim country, to determine this and to declare that they cannot have coverage as a religion because of their political and military stance. And it's very, very obvious what they're doing.
I think maybe I look at it a little bit differently. I think their religion calls on them to conquer. And what I would say is the freedom of religion is not absolute. If
Mhm.
I create a religion that says I'm going to slaughter, I'm going to slit dogs' throats every afternoon as part of my religion, society goes, yeah, no, you can't do that. Or if I wanted to engage in child sacrifice, no, I can't do that. So you can have your religion, but your beliefs cannot be absolute. For example, if you had a religion in the United States that said you should be able to marry a 6-year-old, you can't do that in the United States. Or if you want to have 12 wives, you can't do that in the United States. So we have put boundaries up on practices of particular religions. And I think doing the same with Islam is a good idea. And that's why, we're talking about things like burqa bans and things like that. But I think the bigger issue is for us to understand that the goal of mainstream Islam is to conquer us. It is to take advantage of our values to force theirs on us. And I often talk about, when they talk about Muslim refugees in Israel, they don't ever like to talk about Jewish refugees from all of the Muslim countries that they got kicked out of. In order for us to win, we have to stop being afraid. They are very aggressive, and our side just sort of backs down and lives in this ignorance. And if we don't man up and prepare for the fight, we will lose. I mean, and there are people like me, but there need to be 1,000 more in order to be willing to speak the truth about the real threat of mainstream Islam. It will ruin the West. It's ruined Western Europe. Canada is next, and America's not far behind.
Yeah, so I mean, I love Geert Wilders as well from the Netherlands, and he's been declaring for over 20 years that all manifestations of Islam must be removed from Western society. I mean, history has proven that Islam and the West have never been able to coexist peacefully together because Islam is not peaceful. That's a farce. That statement is part of their a plan to fool people into thinking we can live happily together. And everywhere it's proving that it's failing in modern day times now. So I agree, we need to wake up and we need to take this very, very seriously and work towards shutting it down. Let's talk about Mamdani for a minute, the new so-called mayor of New York. Amy Meck has been posting about him quite a bit. And I found it interesting when she talked about the oath of allegiance when foreigners become citizens and immigrate to America. And I have the oath. I'm just going to read a small section of it. It goes, the oath reads like it's in full, but just this first sentence, it goes, I hereby declare on oath that I absolutely entirely renounce and abjure all allegiance and fidelity to any foreign prince, state, or sovereignty of whom or which I have heretofore been a subject or citizen. That I will support and defend the Constitution and laws of the United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic, and that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same. And then it goes on a bit, so help me God. And so Amy's point in bringing this up is that there's a question to his official citizenship as if he became a citizen under false pretenses, and that under your Section 8 of the USC, it also states any naturalized U.S. citizen who obtains citizenship by concealing or misrepresenting ties to terrorist or communist organizations can have that citizenship revoked in federal court.
Islamists will never assimilate. Look at Zohran Mamdani, who was raised by millionaire elitist parents. His father is a Columbia professor, and his mother is a successful filmmaker who gets bankrolled by Qatar. They have more money than 99% of the American population and own properties in different parts of the world. They could have chosen to assimilate and adopt Western values, but instead his father says in his book, we need to recognize the suicide bomber as a category of soldier. Suicide bombing needs to be understood as a feature of modern political violence rather than stigmatized as a mark of barbarism. And like his father, he supports jihadists and doesn't condemn globalizing the Intifada. They will say what they think everyone else wants to hear. They will lie through their duper's delight smiles. They will pretend to be victims of Islamophobia and be all about humanitarian causes only to get useful idiots on their side. Islamists are snakes. How do you think 56 countries became Muslim majority when Islam started only in one? This has been their pattern for 1400 years, except now they're using the same playbook in modern context to gain political power. They won't stop until the whole world bows to Islam. This is their core belief and it's never going to change. You'd think by now it would be easy for the rest of us who value freedom and life to see through their taqiyya, but most of you don't even know what that is. When I was Muslim, I was told firsthand that it's okay to lie so long as it advances Islam. That's what taqiyya means, and we're all being played.
We came here to remake this state in the image of our people.
What is your position on Mamdani and this statement?
Well, I think it's clear that he lied to become a citizen. He did not disclose his ties to communist organizations. He did not disclose his allegiance and his belief in Muslim terrorists, the five that he so strongly wrote about. He did not register for the Selective Service. I mean, he did not. There are multiple things that he did to engage in immigration fraud. I think he should be denaturalized and deported. But more than that, I think in the United States, we need to go back and look at everyone who's been naturalized over the last 30 years, because what is evident to me is we in the United States have allowed millions of people into this country who did not come because they love the country, who came because they wanted to change the country. And the most disturbing part of Mamdani's election is that native-born Americans, whether you're white, black, Hispanic, Asian, it's not about a religion or a race. Native-born Americans overwhelmingly rejected him. He won because of people who just got off the boat. And so when the people that are arriving do not share the values of the people who are already there, that is a failure of the immigration society. You should be importing people into your country, no matter what they look like or where they're from. You should be importing people into your country who agree with the values of that country. And that is clearly something we failed to do in the United States. And it's why our legal immigration system needs a complete and total overhaul.
And is that something that the Trump administration is working on?
You know, I mean, I think the Trump administration is working on a lot of things. It's something we're talking to them about. The problem is that the left we have so many illegal immigrants that it's hard to get focus on legal immigrants. And I often wonder, did the left open the floodgates of illegal immigrants to hide? So we got so focused on illegal immigrants, we didn't look at, legal immigrants are good, and we won't even look at them. But we've got 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 million people in this country that are either here illegally or are legal immigrants who came to invade and not integrate. Right.
Yeah, we're experiencing that en masse here in Canada as well. And a massive part of that happens to be Hindus. And now they are erecting like 60, 70-foot monkey gods and these type of things in Ontario. And then we've got the Khalistani Sikhs who are fighting, for India to give them a chunk of land to call themselves a nation. And of course, India is not going to do that. So they've focused on Canada. I live in Surrey, British Columbia, and they have the second largest Vaisakhi parade in the world here. And like 100,000 people hit the streets. It's unrecognizable. And the Sikhs are now feeling so emboldened that they're walking around with their actual swords. They're burning pictures of Modi, the president of India, the prime minister of India. And it's just become a terrorist network throughout the country. And now these people are being fast-tracked to citizenship. In fact, a Liberal MP who happens to be a Hindu, no surprise, there are upwards of 3 million temporary residents and student residents that are here currently, and their visas are expiring this year by December. And so she just put a petition forward to fast track 3 million of these students to permanent residency in Canada. We're feeling overwhelmed by this because we are a Christian nation and our immigration system as well is broken. It must align with those who accept and will integrate into Canadian society. And the Liberal government is doing this. I think that it's just a planned attack, and it truly is overwhelming. And so I feel for the United States and the UK.
I can't speak for Sikhs and Hindus in Canada, but I will tell you, at least in the United States and in Florida, the Sikhs and Hindus actually are a great example of how you integrate. I mean, they come, they become citizens. They're very proud of it. They want to get involved in our institutions. Certainly, they have their own religion, but they don't practice their religion, unlike many of the mainstream Muslims, to the exclusion of others. They don't seek to dominate, and they've become a really important part of the fabric of Florida. I actually often describe them. Again, I don't know Canada, but I can only speak to Florida. They're the way they come, or the way I wish, frankly, everyone came here in Florida.
In times of financial uncertainty, securing your wealth is more important than ever. With inflation, market instability, and economic challenges, many Canadians are turning to one timeless strategy: precious metals. Gold and silver have historically retained their value, offering a hedge against economic turmoil and a safeguard for your assets. If you're looking to invest, there's good news for members of Action for Canada. We're proud to announce our partnership with Steve Merrill of Sun City Silver. Steve is not only a friend of the freedom movement, but he's also offering Action for Canada members exclusive access to some of the best pricing in Canada. Thanks to his extensive client base and affiliation with Silver Gold Bull, you can now secure your precious metals at incredible rates. Silver Gold Bull is a trusted Canadian leader with live pricing available 24/7 and nearly 400,000 five-star reviews on Trustpilot. When you purchase through Steve, you're not only investing in your future, you're also supporting the freedom movement, as a percentage of each sale helps support Action for Canada. Plus, there's a bonus. If you place an order of $5,000 or more, you'll receive a 1-ounce pure silver bullet, a unique and valuable addition to your collection. And if you refer someone who places a $5,000 order, you'll get another silver bullet as a thank you. To get started, visit actionforcanada.com/purchasing-precious-metals/. Remember, your decisions are your own, and we recommend doing your own research before making any investment. But with Steve Merrill's guidance and our partnership, you'll be on the right path to securing your future. Secure your assets, protect your future, support the movement. Visit us today to learn more.
Yeah, and it's not the case in Canada. And with the Hindus, like, I'm not saying across the board all Sikhs or Hindus are bad. I'm not saying that at all. I've had neighbors who have been here for 30 years, and they're upset about the current immigration system because they're not being demanded that they speak the language, and they're all receiving tax subsidies from the Canadian people.
That we can talk about. So
it's impoverishing.
Those are things. So that's a great example. That's another bill that I have filed, which is if you come to the United States for freedom and opportunity, and you want to be part of our country, then that's a discussion I'm willing to have. But if you're coming for free stuff, that's not okay. So I have filed a bill that would ban legal immigrants, not just illegal, legal immigrants from any form of government subsidy.
Absolutely.
If you want free stuff, stay home.
Yeah.
We're not into that. And I don't care where you're from. I don't care what your religion is. I don't care anything. You want free money, stay in your own country.
Yeah, and that's the case in Canada. We're bottom of the G7. They're impoverishing our nation. Groceries. The Liberal MP, he stepped down this year, but their mantra was that they were going to model the government after Venezuela. And 10 years ago, I was pretty green back then.
That's where you get. I talk about the delusional and the red-green alliance. Yeah. The delusional idea that you can just give things away. Again, you've got evil in mainstream Islam and delusion in socialism and communism. It is not a good combination.
No, and it's just destroying Canada. And I am definitely a very small minority in my community, and that happened within the last 10 years, very rapidly within the last 2 or 3 years. Nobody speaks English here. You go to Walmart, you go to Costco, you go to the bank, you go to the grocery store, all of the Hindus, Sikhs, Chinese, everybody is speaking their own language. Nobody speaks English, very, very rarely. And it's killing us. It's killing us as a society. And I'm done with being polite. I'll turn to people and say, can you tell me why you came to Canada? I'll try to have a polite conversation with them. I say,
What answer do you get, just out of curiosity?
well, on a couple of occasions, actually, there were some ladies in the neighborhood. It was a mother and daughter. The daughter, like they were both adults, and they were talking in Punjabi, I guess. And I said, "Excuse me, can I just ask?" I says, "Why aren't you speaking English?" And so, because they just want to speak in their mother tongue. I said, "But you're in Canada." And I said, do you understand what the government is doing by not mandating that everybody speak English as their first language in public? What you do in your private home is your business. And she actually turned to me and she said, you know what? At first you could see she was a bit offended, but I said, do you understand nobody is speaking English and that these immigrants are coming in, they're taking advantage financially? And she goes, I 100% agree with you. And as obviously a Sikh person, she was a taxpayer. She's been here for 30 years, and she isn't enjoying the fact that she can barely afford going and purchasing groceries, and that people are coming and freeloading off of Canadians. And so that's when I've had a civil conversation several times, like that fellow was passing my house as well. And again, when you do it politely, and you understand, why did you come for our freedoms? And if you want Canada to maintain our freedoms, then we need to work together against the government that's trying to divide and conquer us.
Well, speaking of bills, I've sponsored a bill that would say you can only vote in English. If you don't speak English, you can't vote. I mean, if a country does not have a unifying language, it will collapse as well.
Absolutely.
And so, again, you want to come here from another country, that's fine, but you should commit to learn the language. And if you want to participate in the governance of the country, you should speak in the language that the country is from, and so like I said, I sponsored a bill that says in the United States, if you can't speak English, you can't vote.
No, and another thing that we are having a problem with is, of course, the critical race theory. We're having terrible land grabs right now with the natives. They make up 3% of the population Canada-wide, and they're basically stealing large masses of land in BC here. Now, they've got their eyes in Ontario, Manitoba. And then with that in mind, with critical race theory, the white colonialists, white supremacy, this has really taken root with our immigrants that are coming in. So I was at Walmart. You go to Walmart, everyone working there is Hindu. And that's not an exaggeration. Now they're so emboldened. I'm standing at the checkout. I very rarely go there anymore. And the staff are speaking in Hindu to each other. And so I'll go, hold on a second. I says, you're in Canada. You need to speak English. And the shock on their face. And I says, you're in a Canadian store. You're an employee. You speak English. And everybody here needs to understand, what's being spoken. And then I went and I made a point to also go to management. And one of the managers ends up being one of the ones that was speaking. But they go back to these students now being indoctrinated somehow when they're becoming citizens about white colonialism.
Well, look, I think that it's a problem in the United States. I can't speak to Canada.
Right.
But people in the Democratic Party, the left party on our side, believing that America is fundamentally an evil place.
Yes.
Need to be destroyed. And you probably have a fair amount of that in Canada as well. I mean, America, is the light of the world. We pioneered a lot of freedoms and democracies. And does that mean every country is perfect? No, but I choose to focus on the good. The example I always use with the critical race theory is America, when it was formed with an original sin, the original sin of slavery. And in fact, when we counted the population, we counted Black people as 3/5 of a person. You did not count, a Black person did not count as a full person. However, America fought its bloodiest war against itself in order to fix and to remedy that original sin. And the overwhelming majority of the people who died in that war were white people who died in order to fix a disgusting mistake, the mistake of slavery. So as we talk about America, we can focus on that original sin of slavery, or we can focus on the sacrifice that millions of people made to fix it. And the fact that you're always trying to be better and you're always trying to improve. I choose to focus on the hopeful vision of America, not the vision that comes from a root of everything is bad and America is bad. So I understand the issues that you're dealing with.
Yeah, I agree. And it was Wilberforce, who overturned slavery as well, a white Christian male. And we've got to remember that Islam was one of the worst, groups that incorporated slavery en masse into their everyday life, as well as the Indians. I mean, we have a long history here that Indians really embraced slavery as part of their lifestyle. And so we've come so far from 150, 200 years ago. We need to live in the present and now and see that isn't it interesting that all of these people want to come to the European white Christian nations because of the richness and what we have developed and the moral society that we once had. And that's what we're fighting for, is the morality within our classrooms, within society, within our government. And we need to get back to that. So if I can one thing I want to talk to you about as well is you have a lot of support in the United States growing regarding this threat of Islam. You have Senator Cruz, I believe, with the help of, what was her name, Representative Mace, and they had retabled the bill to designate the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. I believe Senator Cruz first applied that bill under the Obama administration and didn't go anywhere, and so that he's retabled that. And Marco Rubio, the U.S. Secretary of State, has committed to finally move this bill forward. Is that correct?
We are working on it. The Muslim Brotherhood and all of its affiliates, like the Council on American Islamic Relations, all of these Muslim Brotherhood terrorist organizations, we need to root out. We need to strip their 501c3 status, and we need to send them all home. But yes, I mean, Muslim terror is alive and well and active in the United States. And frankly, there's a couple of them in Congress that I have to deal with.
Within Canada as well, I've said for myself, I believe that no foreigners should be permitted to run for office at any level of government because they use those positions for their own activism. And that's become very, very clear.
Now it's getting through Congress. So before it was by the sword. Now it's getting themselves into parliament and then making laws that act as the sword, the Islamophobia law in Canada, M103.
Yeah.
Muslim Brotherhood.
I find that there are only two things which are open to our movements. Ballot or bullet, nothing in between.
I used to say that democracy is haram. Now I say participation in democracy is our jihad. That's our jihad. We're going to fight not through the bullets, but the ballot.
Going to the ballot and voting is now an obligatory action, fard ayn. And it is a jihad that is now needs to be done because this is our modern jihad. You can elect a person who wants the Sharia.
Because in the United States, what we do know is that in the past election, just this last election, there have been over 800 Muslim candidates running for office.
We may end up with about 50 members of Congress in the next 6 years. That's really the essence of dismantling the system of injustice, is to replace it with the people who represent the Prophet ﷺ.
I've filed a bill that says that you can't be a member of Congress if you're a dual citizen. So I don't know how you can serve two masters at once. If you're an American, I mean, like, think about it. If you're an American and you're a Canadian, how can you be in the American government? Now, the bill does not say you can't be. You can forswear your former citizenship. So if you were a Canadian who became an American, you wanted to be in the American government, you could. You just have to renounce your Canadian citizenship. But it's a bill that sort of moves in that direction to say that you can only be a citizen of one country if you want to serve in the government.
I think it's really, really important. I know that if I was to go to one of the 56 Islamic majority countries or yourself, China, North Korea, I wouldn't have the opportunity to run for office as a white Christian woman. And it's kind of like what's good for the goose is good for the gander. It's people aren't thinking critically about the double standard that has been set and how the target truly is Western European Christian nations. That's what they're trying to destroy, because we are the only nations that truly provide freedom and democracy based on our biblical roots.
Sure. No, I mean it's an issue, and it's one that we're working on here.
I love it. I love it. Can you tell me, is there any word, because we see what is going on in Michigan, we hear about what's going on in Texas and other states where the Muslims are bragging about how many seats they've taken. I think it was 60 seats in the last election. We've got the same thing going on in Canada. This is their grand silent jihad of entering our miserable house from within and taking over without a shot fired. And so I think some really, really significant steps, strong steps need to be taken to defend our nations and our institutions. So is there any chance that Trump is going to get more active on this threat against America?
The president's a pretty busy guy. What I can tell you is there's a lot of efforts being made in Congress. Chip Roy is working on it.
Yes.
Ted Cruz, me. There's a lot of us working on legislation that would deal with the problem.
Okay, well, we're very encouraged by this, and I know that we're taking steps here in Canada as well. Action for Canada is, I've reached out actually to Conservative MPs to see if they would sponsor an e-petition, which is the starting point in Canada of moving towards legislation, at least having it put before the Parliament and have a vote on it for designating the Muslim Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. Prior to me coming to Washington at the end of September, beginning of October, I heard about your No Sharia Act. I think that's brilliant. I think it needs to happen in Canada. This is a conflicting legal political system that's trying to infiltrate our institutions, and we need to take actions here. But unfortunately, so far, I haven't had a Conservative MP who's courageous enough to take this on. So we've got some work to do, and I think that you guys could really set a precedent down in the United States. So keep up the fantastic work. And again, thank you so much. Is there any closing words of encouragement or that you would have to our viewers today to provide for them?
I would just tell people that the threat of mainstream Islam is real, and if we don't deal with it, if we aren't willing to face it, if we aren't willing to call it what it is, we will end up in a place we don't want to be. And all people need to do is look at the UK. They're just a few years further down the path where they've basically lost their country, where your odds of being raped if you're a young girl is incredibly high by people who are not from there, who do not share their values. And we cannot let political correctness put us on a path of suicide. And so I'll be leading that fight in America, and I wish you all the best in Canada doing the same.
Well, thank you so much. And I'll be sure to be viewing your X account and keeping up on all the good things that you're doing and following. And I encourage our viewers to also follow Congressman Randy Fine. And I just wish you all the best. God bless you in all your endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, I'm just so grateful to Congressman Randy Fine for joining me and having this critical conversation. As he has said, and as I've repeatedly said over the years, that Islam truly is the greatest threat to Canada, to the West. We see what's happening in Europe and the UK, and unless there are some very firm actions taken, the country is going to fall out in civil war. We've talked about that in Canada as well. Islam has a directive, and it is to conquer the world so that all will submit to Islam. And there is no way that's going to happen. They are attacking Israel for the very fact that Revelations in the Word of God talks about when Jesus comes back to rule the earth, that he is going to step foot, he is going to sit on the throne in Israel, in Jerusalem. And so this is something that we need to understand, the spiritual component of the battle. And that is why the enemy is so ferociously not only attacking Israel, but also Western Christian nations. The key is Christianity. I want to just share my screen right now, because before I announce next week's guests and close with our scripture, I think it's very important to see the work that Action for Canada has been doing over the years. I wrote a report that I'll review in just a moment called The Rise of Political Islam in Canada. And it is very insightful to show at that time. I started it in 2018 and launched it in 2019. And I had to stop focusing on that report because I was including news reports that were supported by mainstream media and providing the evidence of what Muslims are doing in Canada as far as their criminal activity was concerned, rape, stabbings, just the crime and had just increased so dramatically. And then as well, if you look at that page, you will also see, actually, maybe I'll just move over to that right now. The first section, as you scroll down, it can seem overwhelming because it's such a big report, but a lot of it, as I say, are those articles from mainstream news reporting on what Muslims are actively doing in Canada as far as their criminality and the advancements of Islam. So you'll see that there's 4 parts. The first part is how our own government is facilitating the Islamic takeover. The explanatory memorandum, I quoted from that in the interview with Congressman Fine about eliminating our miserable house and destroying our Western civilization from within and sabotaging it. You can see the quote right here. This is the explanatory memorandum that goes into this Holy Land trial. You can see some of the facts. When you scroll down to the bottom of that page, you'll see all of the Islamic organizations that are included, including the Muslim Student Association, which is called the MSA, which is based in every university and college in Canada. And they're tied to the Muslim Brotherhood. And it's 100%. It's not within question. We have evidence of that. So you've got to ask, why is the government allowing this? Why are they allowing Islamic organizations masking themselves as religions to continue to operate when they were named as co-conspirators in one of these biggest cases in the history? And anyways, just really, I would say it's an important read, and you need to send this report to your elected officials. That's something that you can do. Say, review this report and then engage them, but make sure that you've read it, research it, understand what's going. This is a 911 call, my friends. And then it goes down into the next section. Sorry, like I say, if it's a read, but I've provided a lot of links just to provide the evidence. I've gone back over it and found that, of course, links have been removed because they don't want you seeing that evidence. I believe they were removed intentionally. Then it's the consequences of Islam. I have provided a new report here, but if you go down to December, it will talk about, this Muslim that Toronto arrested and charged with sexual assault, 2 men arrested in Whitehorse, protesters rallied by group students against Israel apartheid, just this anti-Semitic rise that is specifically tied to the Palestinians and Muslims in Canada. And it just goes on with all of these news reports. I literally couldn't keep up with it. And then it has rapidly grown and increased dramatically since then. So the next section would be, I'm sorry, I'm going to make you dizzy here for a moment. The next section would be the threat of Islam in Canada, the mosques, Islamic centers, and schools. And there's evidence there of what imams are saying. Example, an imam in Victoria who's just radical. He was talking to youth and saying, it was in December some years ago, and he said that it is worse to wish somebody Merry Christmas. That is worse than rape or murder. That's what the youth, the Muslim youth these are the kinds of things that they're teaching them. There's an Islamic school that was teaching the youth beheadings in Ontario, on and on and on the evidence goes. That's why I say all manifestations of Islam need to be eradicated. They need to be shut down completely in Canada. So please go and look at these 2 pages. This report, the first page, and you can find us under current issues. If you click on that, you will see political Islam. I've done many reports providing the evidence of the threat of Islam in Canada. If you scroll down, here's the report I just referred to. Former terrorism advisor John Gwendola, he's an FBI former special agent. He gave an incredibly good report as well. I've got the moratorium to demand a moratorium, petition to demand a moratorium on immigration. And if you keep scrolling down, there are videos with multiple guests that we've had on to talk on this important issue. But here at the top, we also care about Muslims. and we want to minister to them. They are being deceived by this cult, by this radical, barbaric cult that has a mission. It's a death cult. It follows them wherever they are. And how, so the so-called moderate Muslim, which there is no such thing, there's only a Muslim that is not following the Quran, how any so-called moderate Muslim can continue to embrace this so-called religion is beyond me at this point. We see the evidence around the world. And a good news report is, I don't have the link right now, but there is reports, and I'm talking radical Islamic leaders are reporting on this, that there is a 24% of their youth are leaving Islam. So can I hear a praise hallelujah on that? This is the kind of awakening we need, but this page would help Muslims. And so if you know a Muslim, please share this page with them. It will encourage them. It will direct them to Jesus as the Son of God and not a mere prophet, which is what Islam does. They've degraded him. And of course, the Bible says in John 3:16, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son, that whoever believes in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. And that's why I say Islam is a tool of the devil. It's a false god, because it pulls people away from Jesus and directs them towards Muhammad, a murderer, a rapist, a thief. He was barbaric. He brought nothing but devastation no matter where he went, in conquest, and it was vile and evil. And they just sort of press Jesus aside. Muslims will say, "Oh no, Jesus is somebody that we honor," but they honor him as a prophet and not as the Son of God. And isn't that just the devil knows the Bible better than the majority of Christians even? So when he sees John 3:16 and knows that people need to believe in Jesus Christ to have everlasting life, why wouldn't he set up this false religion, this false god, in order to deceive massive amounts of people? So we want to help set that straight. So I hope you'll join us next week. I refer to Maxime as the populist leader of Canada. This is something that's very, very important for Canadians to wrap their head around. The only way that Canada is going to break free from the tyranny is incrementally in helping a party, whether it's the Christian Heritage Party or the People's Party of Canada, start getting candidates in. This is what they've done in other nations such as Argentina, Italy, El Salvador. You can see what's going on in Europe and the UK as the battles in France, as they're fighting the same battle as us to get good people into office. And at some point, we've got to break free from the two major parties if we are going to win Canada back. Maxime is definitely a leader who is fighting on the front line on all the critical issues that are important to us. So Maxime and I are going to talk about the budget results. We're going to talk about the vision for Canada and really where we go from here, what the next months are going to look like and what the next 4 years will look like. So it's going to be, again, a very important conversation. So be sure to join us. All right. So the first verse that I want to read from, it's not actually a verse, it's a quote. And it says that it was Dennis Prager, compassion without wisdom is dangerous. It's what enables people to support the underdog, even if the underdog is evil. And when we talk about the underdog, isn't that exactly what Muslims are doing when they enter nations? They self-victimize in order to achieve their grand internal jihad, their stealth jihad. And we're being silly about this. We're being fools that the Bible talks about. And we need to be wise as serpents, innocent as doves. We need to stop being compassionate when we're faced with evil, because they will destroy the future of Canada and destroy the future for our children. And so we have a duty and a right to protect our nation. And so the next section is, again, another quote from Thomas Paine. I've quoted this before. It's, I prefer peace, but if trouble must come, let it come in my time so that my children can live in peace. And we have to remember, as I've just said, we have a right and a duty to defend our sovereignty, to defend Canada as a Christian nation. And remember that the Crusades didn't take place, for no reason at all. It was to stop Islam's invasion and barbaric attack against Christian nations. That history has been dumbed down and to victimize Islam. And it was like it turned on the Christians as if they were barbaric. But you have to get history straight. The Christians finally rose up after years, hundreds of years of the Muslims coming in and slaughtering, going into Christian nations and slaughtering people and pillaging and taking over. And do you know the United Nations isn't calling on them for reparations and to give the land back? Isn't that interesting? So history is repeating itself, and somehow many citizens have convinced themselves that the outcome is going to be different this time around. But as Congressman Fine clearly stated, just look to Europe to see what we will be facing in the near future if we don't take action. So with that, before my final Bible verse, I really want to encourage you at this time to join Action for Canada and support our mission to protect faith, family, and freedom. And our final verse is from Nehemiah. And this is where the Lord is saying, we do need to stand up, but we need to be bold. And it says, and I looked and arose and said to the nobles and to the officials and to the rest of the people, do not be afraid of them. Remember the Lord, who is great and awesome, and fight for your brothers, your sons, your daughters, your wives, and your homes. This is a call from the Lord. We have a duty that we must defend our Christian nation. We must stop being those nice Canadians who feel a need to accept anything that's thrown at us. God is calling us to stand and to stand up and arise. Now is the time. So I just thank you. I ask you that you would give us a thumbs up when we launched this video on Rumble and YouTube. We were previously banned completely from YouTube, so we're trying to build that channel. Give us a thumbs up, share our information, and help us to secure this nation by reaching out to elected officials, challenging them on these issues, advising them of how significant this threat is, that they too need to take action. So I thank you. God bless you, and God bless Canada.
chapters across the nation. We are going to be in every town and every city, and we are going to build communities within these communities of like-minded people who are actually going to care for one another again and love on each other and give each other the help when they're down. We are going to use the teams and the people that build within chapters to support our businesses. The government's actions are completely 100% unlawful. Judgment will again be found on justice, and those with virtuous hearts will pursue it. You have a virtuous heart if you are here today pursuing freedom and righteousness. And then verse 23 comes along with a promise. God says he will turn the sins of evil people back on them. He will destroy them for their sins. I take great comfort in that because I serve a mighty living God who has allowed us to go through this season of discomfort because we as a nation had turned our backs on him, and we need to get right. So I am just going to thank you so much. I'm going to say God bless you and God bless Canada.